After what seems like forever, Chapter 1317 of Hajime no Ippo has finally been dropped on our heads, much like I was dropped on my head as a small child. Now, this, I think, is a really good stepping stone into what the next arc is hopefully going to be, with my fingers darn well crossed. And that is Takamura's next fight, or at least what I'm hoping Takamura's next fight is going to be. But the chapter title is The Art of the Mitt, and to me, this really symbolizes the mentality of a boxer and how they get into their rhythm with their coaches, and it shows this kind of connection that they have with one another. So we open up chapter 1317 with Taihei saying, excuse me, master, after a miss swing, and Shinoda says, don't apologize, that was clearly a mistake by Makanoichi. And he looks over at Ippo and says, what are you going to do if you make a mistake in your own numbering system? Ippo says, yes, I went to take 6 instead of 3. Aoki responds with, you know, when you get carried away, you close the distance too much, don't you? That's hard to beat and hit as well. Meaning that when Ippo is holding the mitts for the boxers, he gets up close and personal instead of keeping his distance and really playing to the strengths of what the opponent would be. Now, this plays a huge role when you're going up against an infighter, going up against an outboxer, trying to match up this kind of distance and getting the feel for how the opponent is actually going to move. And Kaneda says, Master's having a hard time, isn't he? And Itagaki responds with, they do say that fighters aren't very good at holding a mitt. And again, that is in reference to the fact that Ippo is very much an in-boxer. He's very close to the center of the man. He's coming in close, hitting. And he's not used to having to think and strategize about how to maintain his distance from afar, holding these gloves in the different positions. This is a really good and interesting way to introduce the idea of different movements for Ippo, giving him different tools to put in his little toolbox, his little fisherman's tackle box, so he can continue and carry on to become a better and more pure fighter all around. Now, I do think that there's something to be said for specializing in one technique all around, but we've seen that specializing against somebody like Ricardo doesn't mean diddly shit. Because when you come down to it, if rock beats paper and paper beats scissors, that means if this opponent has just one of those, he's going to be able to beat your specialty. And that's a whole nother story. Kaneda responds to this, saying that infighters aren't very good at holding mitts. He says, is there a difference between a fighter and a boxer? We've seen before in the past that there is this difference, and Itagaki really explains. In general, boxers have a better sense of a rhythm and distance. What do you think about those veterans over there? One interesting thing to note with this is Ippo himself is not really that great with the jump rope. If you've watched him multiple times, he tripped up with it in the very beginning. He still wasn't very good with it, and once he did try to follow the rhythm of an outboxer, a fighter compared to a boxer compared to a fighter, he would always do this weird random jumping thingy where he'd throw his hands up and throw everyone's rhythm off kilter. It was really fun to watch, but I think we're going to get to start to see a little bit more of this play into the series overall. So Shinoda dodges a couple punches from Kimura, and Kaneda says, nice work. And Shinoda saying, steal from me, learn from me, Ippo. You need to be doing, learn from me how to be a better coach, a better second. And honestly, Shinoda is not that bad. He's taken Aoki and Kimura to a very high national level. While that might not be international, they have fought for national level belts and had international opponents. It's really interesting to see Shinoda trying to take Ippo a little bit more underneath the wings, because Kamigawa has his own things on his plate. But everything is going good until Kimura's wig falls off and everyone fails. And it's just a good little laugh. However, while they're having this breakdown, we snap to what I think is going to be the next arc. And that is Takamura saying, you guys, if you want to do comedy, do it outside of the ring. Let's continue, old man. As Kamigawa is sitting there holding up the mitts for Takamura, striking, and it's hitting it as hard as ever. But Takamura's expression is very stoic. It's very hard, very concentrating. And Ippo thinks to himself, something feels different. And to me, I think we're going to get to see Takamura really start to get in on his own for a fight. He's going to finally, hopefully, cross our fingers, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, get a super middleweight fight. It has been a while since we've seen somebody genuinely challenge the Hawk of Japan to a battle all on his own. We've seen some really good and interesting opponents, but that doesn't mean anything because we haven't gotten to see it for quite a few years. Not necessarily in the manga, but in real life. Now, I think this is where we're going to start to see the bridge between Ippo and Takamura really come into play now. If something actually happens to Takamura, like let's say that he goes away of Ashita no Joe in this next match, we could really see some problems coming along for Ippo, and he's having to fill the spot that Takamura is currently holding, and that will be kind of upsetting to me. And I know that's kind of a weird way to take a look at this, but I do think that there's going to be a problem between Takamura and Ippo, and they need to cross this bridge for Ippo to come back into the boxing ring. Because as much as we don't like to admit it, Takamura is very much like a big brother to Ippo. He's the one who pulled him into boxing in the first place, saw the potential of this hard-hitting fisherman's son, and I'm hoping that he sees this again in Ippo, but he's been so disappointed and let down by the weak mentality that Ippo has presented time and time again. And if they don't have some kind of understanding, some crossing of the bridge, there will be some bad blood if Ippo ever does return. Now, there is one very interesting way that I can see Takamura finally getting to release his anger, and I think it could potentially be, you're hearing it here first, Ippo holding the mitts for Takamura as he's getting into training. Takamura will just start to wail on the mitts and potentially knock the living daylights out of Ippo, which could either be a good thing or a bad thing. But I'm really hoping we get to see kind of an interaction very much akin to this between Ippo and Takamura, while Ippo holds the mitts and just kind of fails in front of Takamura, but shows that he's wanting to grow and progress and potentially take the coach's place. But I don't know how Takamura would react to that. Let me know what you think of that in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Hajime no Ippo related content. And for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohuli, and I'll see you next video.